Solving square root equations. In order to find the value of a variable when you are given a square root equation, you need to isolate the variable all by itself. So for this example, the square root of x equals 5. I need to get that x all by itself by removing the radical in order to figure out what is x equal to that satisfies this equation. Now the way to get rid of a square root is you are going to have to square both sides. That means raising each to the power of 2. When you square the square root radical, the radical is going to cancel out, leaving x all by itself. That is going to be equal to 5 to the second power, which is 25. So therefore, you have your solution of x equals 25. Now let's move on to a lengthier problem. We have the square root of x minus 5 plus 3 equals 6. In order to solve for x, we need to isolate that square root radical all by itself, which means I do need to get rid of that plus 3 on the outside. So the way to remove a plus 3 is you're going to subtract 3 to both sides of the equation. Once you subtract 3 from both sides of the equation, that leaves you with the square root of x minus 5 equals 3. To cancel out the square root radical, once again, you're going to have to square both sides of the equation. After squaring both sides of the equation, you end up getting x minus 5 equals 9. Finally, to solve for x, you're going to have to remove the minus 5, so you're going to have to add 5 to both sides of the equation. Therefore, we get our final solution of x equals 14. For this example, we now have 2 times the square root of x minus 5 equals 1. We have 2 operations on the outside occurring to the square root radical. I have a multiplication of 2 and I have a subtraction of 5. Remember, in inverse operations, you have to use PEMDAS backwards. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the minus 5 by adding 5 to both sides of the equation. Leaving us with 2 times the square root of x equals 6. I need to get rid of this multiplication of 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I have the square root of x equals 3. Square both sides to get rid of the square root radical. That leaves me with x equals 9. The last example of a square root equation is when you have 2 square root radicals set equal to each other. So for example, the square root of 2x plus 3 equals the square root of x minus 5. So once again, in order to cancel out the radicals, you're going to have to raise both sides to the second power. Cancels out. All you're left is what's on the inside. 2x plus 3 equals x minus 5. Now it just turns into a regular equation where you have to get the x's together in order to solve. So you're going to move the x's over here, move the constants over here. So that leaves me with x equals negative 8. And that is your solution.